Hi everyone, so in this video we're going to be talking about surface area. So the first thing we should do is define what surface area is. So surface area is the sum of the areas of each face of a 3D figure. So we talked about a little bit in class today how 3D figures have faces, and if we took each face and we found the area of each face and added them up, that would give us the total surface area of the figure. So when we want to calculate the surface area of a 3D figure, what we want to do is find the area of each face and add them all up. So in order to be able to do this, we have to review our areas, formula for our areas of our common shapes. So the first one would be a square. So what I want you to do is actually pause the video right now and fill in the three formulas that we know for square, rectangle, and triangle. So for our square and our rectangle, it's the area is the base times the height, and then for our triangle, our area is 1/2 times the base times the height. So for the square, since the base and the height of a square are the same, we can also just label it with this S for side, so the two sides being multiplied together would be side squared. So what we're going to do next is we have three nets here. So the first one would be the net of a cube. The second one is the net of a square pyramid. And the last one is a net of a rectangular prism. So, what I would like you to do is label each section of the net, so label each face with the formula that you would use to find the area of that section. So for example, since our cube is made up of all squares, we know that the area of each square is going to be base times height. So we can label the area of each square with base times height. So what I'd like you to do is for the next two shapes, pause the video and fill in each of the shapes with the formula that you would need to find the area of the face. So for our square pyramid, since it's a square, the base of our, since it's a square pyramid, the base is a square. So the area of our base would be the base times the height. Oh, I'm so sorry, that's such an ugly square. So I'm just trying to highlight that that's our square base. And then each of the triangles that makes up the faces, that would be 1/2 base times height. Then for our rectangular prism, since it's all made up of rectangles, every single face would be found, the area of each face would be found using base times height. So now we're going to do a couple of examples where we have a net and we need to find the surface area. So, looking at our first example, we want to find the surface area of this net. Now, we should be able to look at this net now and recognize that this net would form a cube if we folded it up. So, if you want a little bit more practice with nets, I would definitely suggest going to Google Classroom and playing around with the links that I posted, where it's interactive nets that you can open and close to see to see what the shape looks like when it's flat, and then to see what the shape that it makes in a 3D form. So if this is a cube, they labeled one side as being 4 inches. Now we know that when you have a square, right, when you have a square, both sides are the same. So if one side is 4 inches, the other side is 4 inches. And then to find the area of our square, we're doing base times height. So we would be doing multiplying 4 times 4. So the area of this square is 16. So since this is a cube, that means that the area of all of the squares are 16, because a cube, all of the faces are equal. They're all equivalent. So basically what we're doing is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides to a square, and each side has an area of 16 inches squared. So to find the surface area, we have to add up all of the areas of the faces. So we're really just adding 16 a total of 6 times. The same thing would be to just multiply 16 by 6. So whether you're multiplying 16 by 6 or you're adding up 16 6 times, either way you should have gotten 96 when you either multiplied it or when you added it. So again, what we did was we found the area of each face, and then we just added all the areas up together. So the area of all the surfaces together would be 96 inches squared. Now in our second example, unfortunately it's not as simple as the first one in that it's not all one shape. We have two different shapes going on here. So if we folded this up, and I don't know if you recognize this, but this exact shape is actually an example that we did in class today in the quizzes that we played. This would be a square pyramid. And we know that in our square pyramid, we have a square. So to find the area of our square, we would need to do base times height. And then we have four triangles. And the base of the triangle is 6, and then they have the height labeled for us as 5 centimeters. So there's one square and then 4 triangles. So the first thing we'll do is we'll find the area of our square. So the area of our square we know is base times height, and when you have a square, if the base is 6, the height is also 6. So 6 times 6 would give us 36 centimeters squared. Then we need to figure out the area of our 4 triangles, and the reason why we went over the nets over here was that we have to use 1/2 base times height for the faces that are triangles. So our area of our triangles would be 1/2 base times height. The base is labeled for us as 6, so I just rewrote it here. So the base is labeled for us as 6, and the height is labeled for us as 5. So remember, in triangles, the height is the dotted line that forms a perpendicular angle with the base. So this would be 3 times 5, which is 15 centimeters squared. So what I like to do is once I find the area of my of the two different shapes I have, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase this so we can see it a little bit clearer, and I'm going to fill in our areas. So the area of our square is 36, and then the area of our triangle is 15, and we have 4 of them, so all 4 get labeled as 15. So when we want to find the total area, we're adding up our 36 and then the 4 sides that are 15. So that's what we're adding up to find it. Now, if you want, you can recognize, since 4 of the sides are 15, you can multiply 15 times 4 and then add the 36 on. But either way, you're going to get the same answer. So either way, whether you're adding everything up or you're multiplying first and then adding, sorry, I added wrong. I don't know where I got that from. You're going to get the same answer. And weirdly enough, I did not mean for this to happen. You get 96 again. And again, what we're doing is we're taking the area of our square and then adding to it the 4 areas of our triangles. Since there's 4 triangles, you could just multiply 15 times 4 and get 60, and then add 36 for the area of your square. So then we would get a total of 96 centimeters squared as our surface area. So the next 2 examples are the same 2 shapes that we just did. So what I'd like you to do is for the next 2 examples, I'd like you to pause the video and try on your own. The only way you're ever going to learn is by making mistakes and trying. So it's okay if you make some mistakes on this. That's how we learn. So I want you to pause it, try these examples on your own, and then once you either have an answer or maybe you get stuck, then hit play and watch the explanation. So for the square pyramid, the base is 1 square, and then there's 4 triangles that make up the 4 sides. So for our square, since it's labeled as a base of 20, that means that our area is base times height, so 20 times 20 would be 40, because again, when you have a square, the base and the height are the same. And then we have our 4 triangles. So our 4 triangles are identical, and the area would be 1/2 base times the height. The base is 20, and the height is labeled for us as 14. So 1/2 of 20 times 14 is 10 times 14, which is 140. Then to find our total surface area, we would need to add up all of these sides. So our base would be 400, and then each of the triangles is 140. So then we can see we have 400 plus 140 plus 140 plus 140 plus 140. Now, instead of doing all this adding, this is the same thing as 140 times 4, since there's 4 of them. 140 times 4 would give us 560, and then add to 560 the 400 to get a 960. Now, the same exact thing would happen if you just added them all up to begin with, but 960 centimeters squared would be our total surface area. Now for our cube, remember a cube is made up of all squares, so all these areas are the same. There's just 6 squares. And once we find the area of the one square, we just have to add them all up. So our side is labeled as 5.5, so that means if our base is 5.5, our height's also 5.5. So for our area, we want to multiply base times height. So that would be 5.5 times 5.5, which is 30.25. So that means each of these squares is 30.25. So all 6 squares have an area of 30.25, which means we need to add up 30.25 6 times. So instead of writing it out 6 times and adding it up, we could just multiply 30.25 times 6. And when we do that, we would get 181.5, and our unit would be inches squared. Okay, so that's that for this video. We only did 2 shapes. We did cubes and square pyramids. Tomorrow in class, we're going to go over these, and then we're also going to talk about rectangular prisms and triangular prisms. But we're going to do more on that tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about the last 2 examples as long as you have up to number 4 completed. And then we're going to be doing some more practice with this stuff in class. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and email me. Otherwise, I will see you guys in class. Thanks!